The 49ers just made a couple of tidy roster moves that matter more than they look on paper. They added safety Derek Forrest and tight end Hayden Rucci to the practice squad, released wide receiver Javon Baker from the practice squad, and signed wide receiver Colton Dowell to a reserve, future deal. That's a short list, but it changes the practice room mix and gives the coaching staff a bit more breathing room if injuries pop up. Forrest is the immediate headline here. He's a seasoned special teamer who's seen starts at the NFL level and can slide in for emergency depth at safety, which is exactly the kind of player you want on the practice squad when availability is uncertain. Rucci's addition speaks to the tight end group needing insurance and live bodies for practice reps. He's got the athletic profile to help in line and on special teams while the coaches evaluate him up close. Let me know right now, do you like these additions? Yes or no? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments and tell me one reason why. If you want these roster updates explained fast like this, hit subscribe and help push the channel toward our 1,000 subscriber goal. It actually makes a difference when breaking news drops. Back to the moves, releasing Javon Baker frees a practice squad spot but isn't necessarily a long-term judgment on him. Teams juggle those spots constantly to get the right mix for game prep. Signing Colton Dowell to a reserve, future deal is the sort of low-risk upside play teams make for the off-season. It locks him in for next year's roster battle. Alright, that's the quick rundown so you're up to speed. Next I'll break down Forrest's tape and why the 49ers likely wanted him for special teams and emergency snaps. When you look at Derek Forrest, the first thing that jumps out is that this is not a random late-season flyer. This is a guy who has actually been on an NFL field in meaningful moments. With Washington, he carved out a role because of two things coaches always love: he runs and he hits. That sounds simple, but special teams units live and die by guys who don't hesitate and don't miss assignments, and that's where Forrest made his money. He's been trusted on kick coverage, punt coverage, and in emergency defensive snaps, which tells you the Commanders' staff believed he knew the scheme well enough not to blow coverages. And for a 49ers team that's dealing with injuries and uncertainty in the safety room, that matters a lot more than people realize. Let me ask you this while you're listening. Would you rather the 49ers stash a young upside guy or a proven special teams grinder on the practice squad right now? Type upside or reliable in the comments. I really want to see where you land on that. From a football standpoint, Forrest is the type of player who doesn't need a long runway. He's already been through NFL camps, he's already played real snaps, and he understands how fast everything moves at this level. That's huge if the 49ers suddenly need to elevate someone on a short week. You're not teaching him how to line up or how to communicate in the secondary. You're just plugging him into your system and letting him do what he already does well. He's not here to replace a star, but he absolutely can stabilize a unit if the depth gets tested. And with the way this season has gone for the 49ers, depth is not a luxury, it's a requirement. What also makes this signing smart is that Forrest brings flexibility. If you have a safety who can play special teams at a high level, that frees up your starters to focus on their defensive roles without worrying about taking those extra high-speed collisions on coverage units. That might not sound flashy, but over the course of a playoff push, it matters. One twisted ankle on a kickoff can change your entire game plan, and Forrest is the kind of guy who absorbs that risk instead. That's part of why front offices keep finding room for players like him, even when they don't light up the stat sheet. And here's the bigger picture. The 49ers didn't just sign Forrest because he was available. They signed him because he fits what they need right now: experience, physicality, and reliability. If he pops in practice, don't be surprised if he's elevated for a game and suddenly you're seeing him fly down the field on kick coverage or lining up as a deep safety in a pinch. If you're enjoying this breakdown so far, take a second to like the video and subscribe. We're chasing that 1,000 subscriber mark, and your click genuinely helps us get there. Now that we've covered why Forrest makes sense, the next move to look at is Hayden Rucci and what his addition says about the tight end room, because that tells its own story about how the 49ers are preparing for what's coming. Hayden Rucci might not be a household name, but his signing actually tells you a lot about how the 49ers are thinking about their tight end group right now. Rucci came into the league as a tough, reliable, do-the-dirty-work type of tight end, the kind of player who can block, catch the simple stuff, and line up in multiple spots without making mistakes. That profile fits exactly what teams look for when they want practice squad depth that can realistically be elevated if something goes wrong. The 49ers already have their stars at tight end, but football seasons are long and physical, and having a player like Rucci in the building means you're not scrambling if someone gets dinged up. Let me know what you think. Would you rather the team keep a blocking-focused tight end for insurance or swing for a more athletic, pass-catching option? Type blocker or receiver in the comments and tell me why. What makes Rucci interesting is that he's bounced around just enough to give him a real education in different systems. That means he's had to learn quickly, adapt quickly, and prove himself in short windows. That kind of background is perfect for a practice squad role, because the coaches can throw him into different looks, different packages, and see what sticks. He's not being asked to be George Kittle. He's being asked to be dependable, physical, and ready if his number gets called. In Kyle Shanahan's offense, tight ends have to understand route concepts, blocking angles, and motion assignments, and Rucci gives them another guy they can test in that environment without burning a roster spot. There's also a special teams angle here that fans sometimes overlook. Tight ends are often core special teamers because of their size, strength, and willingness to mix it up. Rucci brings that potential, and that's huge if the 49ers need someone who can contribute in multiple phases of the game. When you add someone like him to the practice squad, you're not just thinking about offense, you're thinking about kickoffs, punts, and all the little hidden yardage plays that decide close games. If you're enjoying these inside the roster details, make sure you're subscribed and hit the like button, because we're pushing hard to reach 1,000 subscribers and keep growing this community of Niners fans. So while Rucci might feel like a quiet move, it's actually a smart piece of roster insurance that gives the coaching staff flexibility and peace of mind. And when you combine that with the Forrest signing, you start to see a pattern. The 49ers are shoring up the spots that matter most when injuries and short weeks start to pile up. Up next, we need to talk about the other two moves, the release of Javon Baker and the reserve, future signing of Colton Dowell, because those tell you just as much about where this roster is headed. The other two moves, releasing Javon Baker from the practice squad and signing Colton Dowell to a reserve and future deal, might not grab headlines, but they're just as important when you're trying to understand how the 49ers are managing this roster behind the scenes. Practice squad spots are incredibly valuable, especially this late in the season, because every one of those spots is basically a lottery ticket for injury insurance. When the team decides to move on from someone like Baker, it doesn't always mean he failed. It usually means they needed a different type of player in that slot, whether that's a safety, a tight end, or someone who fits a more urgent role for game preparation. Let me ask you this real quick. Should the 49ers have kept Baker around for depth? Yes or no? Drop your vote in the comments. Baker is a wide receiver, and the 49ers already have a deep and talented receiver room. So if you're going to carry someone on the practice squad, he needs to offer something unique or be closer to game ready than the other options. By opening that spot, the team created room for players like Forrest and Rucci, who address more immediate needs in special teams and positional depth. That's just roster math, and it's something every front office does constantly. You're always balancing potential against necessity. Now, the Colton Dowell move is a little different because a reserve and future contract is about tomorrow, not today. When a player signs one of those deals, he's basically being locked into the organization for the upcoming offseason and training camp. It gives the 49ers a chance to bring him in, develop him, and see what he can do in a full off-season program without competing against 31 other teams for his signature. For a wide receiver, that can be huge because it means more reps, more coaching, and a real shot to fight for a roster spot down the line. If you like the idea of the team taking low-risk shots on young receivers, make sure you tap the like button and subscribe. We're working our way toward 1,000 subscribers, and your support really helps this channel grow. So when you put these two moves together, you can see the strategy clearly. The 49ers are tightening up the practice squad for the stretch run while also planting seeds for the future. That balance is what good organizations do. They don't just think about the next game, they think about the next season too. And that brings us to the final piece of this puzzle. What all of these moves actually mean for the 49ers as they head into the biggest games of the year. When you zoom out and look at all of these moves together, the story becomes pretty clear. The 49ers are trying to protect themselves against chaos. This time of year is when injuries, short weeks, and sudden absences can derail even the most talented rosters, and adding players like Derek Forrest and Hayden Rucci gives the coaching staff options instead of panic. Forrest helps stabilize special teams and gives you a safety who can step in if needed, while Rucci gives you a tight end who can practice, block, and contribute in multiple phases if something goes wrong. That kind of flexibility is exactly what championship-level teams build toward. Let me ask you straight up, do these moves make the 49ers safer for a playoff run, yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments and tell me why you feel that way. What I really like about this approach is that none of these signings are flashy, but they're smart. The 49ers aren't chasing headlines, they're chasing reliability. They're making sure they have bodies in the building who know how to play football, know how to prepare, and won't be overwhelmed if they're suddenly asked to contribute. When you add in the reserve and future signing of Colton Dowell, you also see that the front office is keeping one eye on the future while they push for wins right now. That balance is hard to pull off, and it's something the best organizations consistently get right. So if you're a 49ers fan, this should give you a little bit of confidence. These moves don't guarantee anything, but they do make it more likely that the team can weather whatever gets thrown at them. If you enjoyed this breakdown and you want more daily Niners coverage like this, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on. We're on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers, and every new supporter brings us closer to that goal. Also, don't forget to like the video. It helped you understand what these roster changes really mean, because that helps get this content in front of more 49ers fans just like you. Now that we've walked through everything from top to bottom, I'd love to know your overall take. Are you feeling better about the depth after these moves, or do you still think the team needs to do more? Share your thoughts in the comments, and I'll be reading them for our next video.